Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Rehab Revolution, the podcast where we talk about all things physical therapy. I'm your host, Dr. Samantha Ritz, PT, DPT, a mobile concierge physical therapist in the Dallas, Texas area. I recently left the traditional outpatient realm and decided to open my own private practice, Function Physical Therapy. I specialize in tennis and pickleball injuries, but I definitely see the whole gamut of injuries in post-op patients. But enough about me, let's get to the meat of the podcast today. Today, we're diving into Injury Prevention 101, a guide to safeguarding your physical health. So, whether you're a tennis pro, a pickleball fanatic, or just into sports in general, this episode is tailored just for you. Before we jump into the nitty-gritty of today's episode, let's talk about why injury prevention is crucial for racket sport athletes. I'm sure you've heard the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, it certainly holds true in the world of sports as well. By taking proactive steps to safeguard your physical health, you can stay on the court, the field, or whatever sport you play for the long run. From tennis elbow to shoulder strains, racket sports can put a lot of stress on our bodies. But don't you worry. Today, I'm going to give you some practical tips and some exercises that I recommend to keep you in top form. So we're going to break down today's podcast into 3 parts. Part 1 is going to be the warm-up. Part 2 is going to be strengthening. And lastly, part 3 is going to be techniques and equipment tips as well. So first, let's talk about warm-ups and stretching. Think about your warm-up and your stretch routine as giving your body a friendly wake-up call before the intense action begins. Before you hit the court, you've got to make sure to warm up those muscles. I generally like a dynamic warm-up over a static one. Static stretching is usually, it can be described as something where you're in a hold, you're sitting, you're standing, you're lying still and holding a single position for a period of time. Generally up to about 60 seconds. Now, I would say for static stretching, make sure you're doing those stretches for at least 60 seconds. The evidence shows that there's really no mechanical change if you do anything in a shorter amount of time than that. But for a warm-up, I would recommend dynamic stretching. So dynamic stretches are going to be controlled plyometric movements that prepare your muscles, your ligaments, and other soft tissues for performance and safety. So, for example, I like to start with some light jogging, some jumping jacks, just to get the blood flowing a little bit, and then you want to move on to more dynamic stretching. So shoulder circles, you're going to be looking at some pogo hops, heel raises, hip circles, body weight squats, just to name a couple. I would recommend take at least 5 minutes, especially with the weather starting to get a little bit colder. You really want to make sure that you're taking the time to warm up your body appropriately, especially for those joints that are a lot more mobile. So your shoulders and your hips, things that you're using a lot in tennis or pickleball, any other racket sport. You want to make sure that you've warmed up those joints appropriately before you start to use more aggressive movements, okay? This really does prepare your body for the dynamic movements that are required of you when you're playing these sports. So let's go on to strengthening. Now that we're warmed up, we want to focus on strengthening those key areas that are prone to injury. So especially your shoulders, your core, your glutes, your wrists. Those are the things I see a lot as a physical therapist. I really want to recommend that you incorporate exercises that focus on endurance and longevity. So for endurance, you're going to be prescribing yourself exercises that have higher repetition and that are lower weights, especially for your shoulders and your hips. I love this for your racket sport athletes. So for example, you can do some shoulder pulses, which would be taking a band and just kind of pulsing in front of you. You've got trunk rotations, which is going to be with a band or with a medicine ball, really activating your core, making sure that if you are challenging your core or your trunk, whatever you call it, you're doing something called a pelvic tilt. I actually do have a video on what a pelvic tilt is and how to do it on my Instagram or my TikTok, so you can find that. I'll link it below. Also, planks and single leg stability. Now, single leg stability is something we really don't talk enough about, especially for sports, but you want to make sure that you're able to stabilize on one leg, really focus on just the movement of force generation from either your right or your left leg, really necessary in these racket sports, really any sport in general. So single leg stability as well. These exercises are not only building your strength, but they're also enhancing your stability, which reduces your risk of injury. So making sure you're focusing on those kind of spots. Now, if you want specific ones, check out my Instagram page or check out my Facebook page. I have some videos I put together on specific routines you can do for like hip mobility or shoulder strengthening as well. So that education is out there. I just don't want to get too much into it today. It's really necessary to understand body mechanics as well. and how your body operates during your sport to give you the best advantage in a specific movement. So for example, understanding that with a tennis serve, you're really using force generation from your quads and from your glutes or your lower body, and that explains why training those muscles is so important in the gym. All right, let's move on and talk about technique. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention to your technique. If you do have a coach or a pro that you work with, of course, they're going to be really specific on these things, and these are the people you want to listen to. For example, the grip on your racket or your body positioning when you're serving or when you're hitting a ball. You want to also make sure that your equipment is good. So you want to make sure that your racket and your shoes are in good condition. For example, one I really like to use for tennis elbow, I always recommend that my players use a lower string tension, and they also use a dampener. That just basically reduces the force absorption required on your elbow and your body tissues, and that helps you recover a little bit faster from that injury, especially if you're still playing. Another example is old shoes. So make sure your shoes are good. If your shoes are old or they don't have good traction, you're going to be sliding all over the dang place. And when that happens, it really increases your risk of pulling something, your hamstrings, your groin. I see it all the time. So make sure you're checking your shoes as well. And then I did want to put in, I know a little bit earlier we talked about the stretching and the warm-up routine, but let's talk a little bit about the cool down routine as well. So with the warm-up, I really like to see more dynamic. We're moving a lot more. We're getting that heart rate up. We're getting the blood flowing. With the cool down, I like a more even mix of static and dynamic stretching. So in the cool down, I would expect to see a little bit more of whole time. So the calf stretch, the hip stretches. I have a great video on hip stretches that I've been linking on my Instagram. You can check those out. Just something where you can kind of slow that heart rate down a little bit. Also, something that sounds, if you're into yoga, a good yoga flow is always great on the court. Just take a couple minutes. You can even get back in your home and then just do it then. But always make sure that you're doing a good routine in the beginning and you're doing a good routine in the end. When we're younger, we can kind of get away with these things a little bit more, but as we get older, we want to make sure that we're treating our body appropriately, and that is going to really help enhance our longevity, enhance the time of us being injury-free. We really want to just prevent those injuries. So these are just a couple of tips and tricks that I found work really well for me, really easy to implement. Making sure you're checking your equipment, making sure that you've got a good warm-up and cool-down routine, and then also making sure that in the gym, if you are in the gym, that if you're playing a sport, you're doing some movements that are specific to your sport as well. And just understanding how your body works and how your body moves helps you to pick and choose those things that you're doing in the gym. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me on today's episode of Rehab Revolution. A little bit of a shorter one today, but I just wanted to get something in this week. I really hope you learned some valuable insights and some information today. If you did enjoy today's episode and found the content to be pretty beneficial, then please consider sharing with your friends, your family, someone that you think would benefit from this information. Your support means the world to me, and it helps me reach more people who might need a little bit of education or guidance on their health and wellness journey, or specifically more toward racket sports. Remember, your health is ongoing, and taking small steps today can lead to really significant improvements in the future. So if you have any questions, topic suggestions, or if you just want to share your own experience with physical therapy or racket sports in general, I'd really love to hear from you. You can comment below, or you can email me at drsam@functionphysicaltherapy.org. Don't forget to subscribe to Rehab Revolution so you never have to miss an episode from me. We have some exciting topics and some exciting interviews that I have on the docket for the future, and I really can't wait to share those with you. Thank you for being a part of my community. Stay active, stay healthy, and until next time, take care of yourself.